So if any of my viewers have been keeping up with my videos lately, then you have probably noticed that I'm going back through the Assassin's Creed games and making videos just like this one, talking about what I like about the game and what I don't, ultimately with the goal to help anyone decide whether or not this game is worth your time. Today I'll be continuing with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which is one of my favourites in the series, so I do have a lot of good to say about it, but please do remember that this is just my opinion and I welcome you to drop your own thoughts down in the comments. Finally, before I begin, almost 97% of my viewers are not subscribed, so if you enjoyed the video or want to see more Assassin's Creed content, then please subscribe to the channel as it is greatly appreciated. Anyway, with that said, let us begin. As always, I'll start by sharing my thoughts on the story without diving into any major spoilers. This game picks up immediately after the events of Assassin's Creed 2. This time, however, the central conflict resolves around Cesare Borgia, the primary Templar antagonist. To ultimately bring him down, however, you first need to weaken his power by recruiting allies of your own and eliminating his 3 strongest supporters. The game itself is a bit shorter, spanning just 9 sequences, but I actually think that it works in its favour. It never overstays its welcome. Cesare as a villain is easily one of my favourites in the series. He's menacing, cruel, and layered in a way that makes him genuinely compelling. His complexity is heightened by his family ties. His father, Rodrigo Borgia, serves as Pope during the events of the game, and his questionable relationship with his sister adds an unsettling edge. Ubisoft's choice to lean into this dynamic was bold, especially since there's no concrete historical evidence of anything incestuous, but I do kind of understand why they did this, because it makes Cesare more memorable, as I think he's the only Templar in the series to have an actual relationship with his sister. I just know that most of our reactions to him and Lucrezia was the same, just pure confusion and disgust.
It's hideous!
Visually, Cesare's design is striking. Personally, I think he has some of the most drip of any antagonist in the franchise, and this is kind of random, but to me, he feels like a darker, corrupted take on Prince Charming from Shrek. I know it's a weird comparison, but he's always reminded me of him. Anyway, that said, I do wish Ubisoft had gone with a more historically accurate detail. Cesare contracted syphilis after 1497, which left him with facial disfigurements that he covered with a leather mask. Including that design choice would have not only been more authentic, but also it would have added an extra layer of menace to his character. As for the other antagonists, each of them stands out with unique personalities and appearances, and the choice to limit the story to 4 key Templars was a smart move. Any more would have made the narrative bloated and robbed these confrontations of their weight. One of the most exciting additions in Brotherhood was the ability to recruit assassins to your cause, a feature that was a huge selling point back when the game first released. Even now, it's still incredibly satisfying to build and command your own Brotherhood. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen this same system since Assassin's Creed 3, and I actually miss it compared to the lighter versions we've had in later entries like Shadows. I'll go into more detail about this in the side content section of the video, but it remains one of the best parts of the experience. While Cesare is the core focus of the story, there are a few intriguing subplots. My personal favourite involves a betrayal within the Brotherhood itself. If done poorly, betrayal arcs can feel cheap, but here it's handled with just the right balance. It doesn't overshadow the main narrative, but instead adds tension and complements it perfectly. There is also the modern day for those who are interested in it. The narrative for this also takes place right after the previous game, and out of the 3 games so far, this modern day is the most detailed and interesting. Though I personally have never really been all too interested in the modern day side of Assassin's Creed, but if you enjoy that sort of thing, then it is there for you to experience, which I advise to make the most of because the modern day since Assassin's Creed 3 has been lacking severely. Anyway, I won't say much more to avoid spoiling things for anyone who hasn't played it yet. All I'll say is this: the story in Brotherhood is strong and absolutely worth experiencing. Even if you came to the game just for the narrative alone, I think you'd walk away satisfied. The gameplay in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood builds on the foundation of Assassin's Creed 2. The improvements aren't drastic, but they don't need to be. The game still holds up really well. Parkour, for instance, feels tighter and faster. Scaling wars is noticeably quicker than in the previous entry, and while the occasional hiccup of getting stuck on objects still exists, it happens less frequently. Methods of traversal also got a new addition: parachutes. They allow you to glide slowly across the map, which isn't at all necessary for progression. You can play the entire game without touching them, but they're still a fun way to mix things up. Combat, on the other hand, has seen some more significant changes for better or for worse. It just depends on what you prefer. In Assassin's Creed 2, countering an enemy and then trying to attack a tougher foe would usually just get you blocked. In Brotherhood, you can now chain kills onto almost any enemy type, which makes battle flow much more smoothly. On top of that, certain weapons like swords and daggers now have a ranged option tied to them, as seen by the smaller gun or knife icon next to your weapon. This means you can use ranged tools seamlessly without needing to swap them in manually. Even better, if you counter an attack and hold the square or X button while choosing a target with the left stick, You can perform a double kill that combines melee and ranged combat in a single move, which is really satisfying. Finally, the stealth has also received a much needed polish. One of my biggest frustrations with Assassin's Creed 2, something I didn't even mention in my video on it, was how unreliable rooftop stealth felt. If you tried to assassinate or throw a knife at a guard whilst on the rooftops, you would get detected almost every single time, which became incredibly frustrating. Thankfully, Brotherhood fixes this issue, making stealth much more reliable and enjoyable. All in all, the gameplay will feel instantly familiar to anyone who's played the first 2 entries, but with many of the rough edges smoothed out. The tweaks may not reinvent the formula, but they refine it in ways that make Brotherhood feel like a stronger, more polished experience overall. Unlike the previous Assassin's Creed games, Brotherhood features only one main map, Rome. At first, that might sound limiting, but given the time period, this version of Rome is actually fascinating to explore. The city is in disarray under Borgia rule. Ancient landmarks like the Flavian Amphitheatre are still standing, but only as faded shells of their former glory. Focusing the entire game on this single location makes total sense, and honestly, the map is a joy to traverse. As always, there are plenty of iconic landmarks, and each district has its own distinct atmosphere. Because the Borgias have oppressed and neglected much of the city, many shops and buildings are abandoned. You're given the opportunity to purchase and restore them, which not only revitalises the city, but also earns you passive income over time. It's very similar to the economic system from Assassin's Creed 2, and it still works well here. Customization is also largely the same as before. Most weapons return from the previous game, with a few great additions like the crossbow and a permanent heavy weapon sheath, so you can finally carry two-handed weapons properly. Robe dyes are still available, and you once again buy armor upgrades to increase your health. A new feature called shop quests add a bit of progression depth. Certain gear and items can only be unlocked by collecting specific ingredients found in chests or earned from sending your recruits on missions. Speaking of recruits, that brings us to the real standout side content, easily one of the game's biggest selling points. Each district of Rome is controlled by a Borgia captain. To liberate an area, you have to assassinate the captain and then burn down their tower. Every time you do this, you gain the ability to recruit a new assassin into your Brotherhood. These recruits can be sent on missions to earn XP, and once they reach level 10, they can officially become a master assassin through a special ceremony. It's incredibly rewarding. Not only can you call them into combat to assist you or eliminate targets, but it genuinely feels like you're rebuilding the Brotherhood piece by piece. Sticking with the assassin theme, the game brings back assassination contracts. They're simple, you're given a target and your job is to eliminate them. Assassin's Creed 2 has 30 of these, which honestly felt a bit excessive, but Brotherhood cuts it down to just 12. It's a much better balance and keeps them from feeling repetitive. Alongside these are the Templar agent missions. These targets are members of society secretly working with the Borgias. Gameplay wise, they're similar to assassination contracts, but the difference is that there are cutscenes attached to each of the 6 missions, which gives them more personality and narrative weight. As a result, I find them more engaging overall. Then we have the Romulus layers. If you played the Assassin's Tombs from AC2, you'll be right at home. But in my opinion, these are even better. The mission designs are more elaborate and exciting, and I absolutely love the aesthetic of the followers of Romulus faction. Their designs are incredible. Each lair feels visually distinct and memorable, with some stunning set pieces. One of them even takes place during a thunderstorm at night, which is easily my favourite one of the bunch. The objective in every Romulus lair is to retrieve a scroll containing a key. Collect all of these keys and you can unlock the Armour of Brutus, the best armour in the game in terms of the stats. There is then one of the most unique additions to Brotherhood, Leonardo's machines. Leonardo is being forced to build devastating weapons for the Borgias, ranging from tanks to machine guns. To stop them from being mass-produced, he gives the task to Ezio to find and destroy each of the prototypes, along with their schematics. The missions are incredibly fun and stand out as some of the most memorable in the entire series, especially the tank mission, but that one's unforgettable for a very specific reason. The Christina memories are also very unique. They unlock gradually as you progress, ending once you hit 75% completion, and honestly they're incredible. These missions act as flashbacks to Ezio's younger days during his relationship with Christina Vespucci, and each one builds towards the conclusion of their story. I won't spoil what happens, but they're genuinely powerful and absolutely worth experiencing. Next up are the Thief and Courtesan assignments. These are smaller missions where you help each faction with their individual problems. They're quick and sometimes entertaining, though I personally found the Courtesan questline to be more engaging overall, but that's just my preference. And of course we've got the collectibles. They're mostly the same as in Assassin's Creed 2. Feathers return, but there are only 10 this time, along with 101 Borgia flags and 10 glyphs scattered around the map. The glyphs are Subject 16's puzzles, just like in the previous game. They're interesting the first time you do them, but they can get a bit tedious after a while. I forgot to mention them in my Assassin's Creed 2 video, but they're basically identical here, just with fewer to track down thankfully. Overall, I think Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is an amazing game, and this might be controversial, but it's actually my favourite of the Ezio trilogy. I'll admit, I think Assassin's Creed 2 has a slightly stronger main story, but Brotherhood is simply more fun. It prioritises quality over quantity. The side content has more variety, it's more fleshed out, and none of it drags on. Antagonists are a huge part of what makes a story work for me, and Cesare stands out as a villain who's more compelling and layered than Rodrigo. Limiting the number of core antagonists to 4 instead of 13 in Assassin's Creed 2 was a smart decision. It allowed the writers to focus on developing each one properly. Don't get me wrong, there were some great villains in Assassin's Creed 2, but a few of them felt a bit forgettable, and that's why Brotherhood's approach works better in my opinion. But hey, that's the beauty of opinions. We all have different ones, and that's what makes discussions like this fun. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts on Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.